This is going to be a bit of a doomer video. Why Wrath of the Lich King Classic will not be how you remember Wrath of the Lich King. This is not good.
If you're watching this, you're probably excited about Wrath of the Lich King Classic.
Nope.
You've heard the stories, the critical acclaim. You've
Shit
heard a
game.
decade's worth of praise about this particular
Sucks.
expansion. We've heard accolades such as the pinnacle of WoW, the best expansion ever.
Yeah.
It all went downhill after this.
True.
This is where Activision bought
That
them,
part is true.
and look how shit Blizzard became in the long run. But
True.
let me ask you a question. What even is Wrath of the Lich King? Well, of course, it's a WoW expansion. But what makes this expansion so revered and so held on a pedestal compared to the other iterations of World
Well, because
of
it's
Warcraft?
good.
The answer is honestly really simple. It was the end of a story that had been told for well over a decade, starting for some in Warcraft 1, but for many in...
That's actually a good point. Yeah, it's true. It was like the Lich King was like the last loose end of Warcraft 3. It's like we took care of Illidan, Magtheridon, Vashj, Kael, like all these other people. Like it was mainly the Lich King was like the last loose end.
Warcraft 3. It was the continuation and improvement on a
like the
game
end of
design
the
that had
trilogy.
convinced 12 million people to sub monthly.
Yep.
It was the right time, the right place, and the right systems and world to suck you right into the game itself.
Ooh.
But I will say one thing. The Wrath of the Lich King of then versus the Wrath of the Lich King of now is two completely different games. But how, you ask? Well, it's pretty simple. The experience versus the end result. First of all, there wasn't 10,000 content creators releasing videos about every aspect, nook and cranny of the game for everyone to see. There was still excitement and discovery in regards to the game itself.
In Wrath, you did have Tank Spot. Like, I remember watching the Tank Spot guide on how to get immortal before my guild did it. So there were a number of, like in Wrath, there were guides out there. Like, I was watching guides in Wrath. But it's nothing like it is now. It's like I'm saying it's like it was there, but it's certainly not comparable to now.
You didn't have content creators streaming every facet of the game, mining the very depths of content,
That's true.
milking it dry. Though we had way more music videos back in the day, like what
We
happened?
did.
Who doesn't remember the epic #1 hit single, Ulduar? You didn't have 100 discords min-maxing every class, every
That's
raid,
true.
gold farming methods, and everything else to death. Farming for gold was actually a struggle back in the day. People struggled to get gold for cold weather flying,
You'd have
or
to buy
buying
it.
the mammoths or the Dalaran ring. Remember that girl who sold sex for gold? Yet now...
Epic mount for an epic mount. Yeah, I remember this very, very fucking clearly.
Nowadays on YouTube, there'll be 100 videos titled, "The best gold farm you've ever seen, 50,000 gold per hour, no
Wow.
cap." Now, none of that is actually a bad thing. And heck, if people enjoy it, there's no harm or foul in games being played like this in a modern setting. But it wasn't quite like that back then.
No.
There weren't any TeamSpeak 3 or Ventrilo servers with 40,000 people in them discussing how big the warrior cocks are or how good they are at the game. No.
I mean, that was, it would happen sometimes. You would get a lot of people in Discord. Like, people would, like, what you would do, so this is like what it would be like back in the day, is like, let's say you're a warrior. There were like warriors on the server or mages on the server that like everybody just acknowledged. This is, if you don't know what you're doing, message this person. And like I would ask, like I remember there was a guy in my guild, his name was Ecthelion, and he was like the guy. He was the warrior. And so like if I didn't know if I should use X or Y thing, I would look him up and see what he did, and I would just do that. I would just immediately do that. I wouldn't think about it or anything. So like we had stuff like this, but it was like way, way, way less. You had class
Offensive
leader.
warriors?
Yeah, you had class
I also
leader.
play one. You couldn't just go and browse the server Discord and then the Discords of 350 guilds, perusing and browsing to see just what was being offered, thinking to yourself, I lack this guild but I don't have my role available. Let me just go and look at another 35 guild Discords and find a home as quickly as you can. Reputation actually had meaning. Servers were far smaller, the communities were more tight-knit, and when your reputation was ruined, you had to jump ship. Servers are so large now that this isn't even the case anymore.
That wasn't the case then either. I don't know how many times I told the story, man. People tell me like, oh, your reputation is ruined on the server. You're never going to be able to find another group again. Bro, I'm already farming. Bro, my group and my alt is already halfway full. Like, Kel'Thuzad was an exception, though. Kel'Thuzad was one of the first mega servers. It was like Darkspear because of Swifty, and then a lot of people from Darkspear and around there, from Dara MacTyre, moved to Kel'Thuzad. And like, at that point, every rank 1 player was either on Blackrock, Tichondriast, or KT. And so you had Mitch Jones, you had I remember Athene was on our realm, Athlete, like this guy got rank 1 every fucking season, and a bunch of other just like guys that you would know if you knew WoW PvP. And yeah, the legendary players, etc. And I feel like we had a mega server. We already did. If Reckful stayed on Tichondrius. Reckful never came to KT.
You actually had to go and scroll through forums, whisper people, try to find someone in that raid team or that guild. Look at general and trade chat to see if someone was recruiting. Now that still happens in today's day and age, but it's not as common. Logs and passes weren't even widely available, acceptable, or accessible. People used to use achievements and
you did, so like logging really became popular in like TOC to ICC. People were logging in TOC and ICC. And like before then, like there were people that did it, but it was much less. Yeah, World of Logs. Remember it? Yeah, of course.
Discord, the metric to define your skill and ability. People would unironically put on shittier gear with higher eye level just to get into groups.
I did that.
If you were bad at your class, you couldn't just go to the Fight Club Discord, check to see what the current meta is, see how to play it, get access to 1,000 guides, and see everyone so openly sharing information. Back then, you had to use TankSpot and EJ. People actually discussed their classes and their abilities and how to be better, how they...
EJ was elitist jerks. It was like a forum.
Did it. People were more likely to take you under their wing and guide you and teach you. People used to nurture their players. Nowadays, you best get your ass to fucking YouTube or Fight Club or whatever the Discord for your class is and get studying. Now, before any of you say...
I think it was like people would, like, for example, even nowadays, if you ask somebody for advice, a lot of people will help you. Like, they actually will. Like, if you're in a guild and like, you're a new player and you ask somebody, I feel like a lot of people will help you. However... I think the reason why people don't take it serious, like, the reason why is because there are a lot of resources out there, and there are people who don't take advantage of any of them. And I think that's what annoys a lot of people. At least it annoyed the shit out of me.
And what about the forums? Well, yeah, they were a thing. And guess what? Asmongold probably has more views in his last 10 reaction videos than every single content creator's videos combined from 2008 to 2010 Wrath of the Lich King YouTube. Minus music videos. Actually, someone tell me if that's the case. I genuinely curious now.
No, I don't. Like, Wrath was massive back then. Like, there were videos, I remember Hobbs' video getting level 80 got 1 million views. Just him hitting level 80. That was it. Wrath was huge.
Because YouTube was a thing back then, and that there were way more forums, doesn't mean it was just as easy. Sure, you could type World of Warcraft Warrior Guide back in 2009, see some videos recorded at 160p from someone whose microphone sounded like a vacuum, and potentially learn something. Heck, there were a couple of guilds that published really good guides. TankSpot was generally fairly good, and there were guild forums that would publish high-quality walkthroughs. Yeah, compare it to today. Go ahead, type WoW Classic Warrior Guide on YouTube, and tell me how easy and accessible the game is and the knowledge is. PvP itself was just a completely different ballgame. Everybody was shit back then. Most people had no idea what they were doing, as even a mediocre player from today was a pretty good player back then. Wintergrasp itself was so different to the Wintergrasp that you will get to play in Wrath of the Lich King Classic. I'd cover it now, but it's a video in and of itself, so I won't be doing that. Now let me just say that Wrath of the Lich King Classic is going to be an incredible game, and it's going to be fun for so many people. It's going to be the penultimate adventure for a lot of WoW players, myself included. It's the end of an era that we'll get to relive, but we'll be reliving it through a modern lens. So let me say one thing.
Well, you can never go back and have the same exact experience again. I feel like that doesn't mean that it won't be fun. Like, I think that a lot of people go back into, like, Wrath or Classic or something like that, and they want it to be exactly the way that it was, and, like, that's not going to happen. However, you can still have a good experience.
Even if I could go back in time and play Wrath of the Lich King how it was meant to be played back then, I wouldn't. I'd have enjoyed it back then for sure, but with the modern conveniences we have, the knowledge, the access, it would personally be incredibly painful to go back and play like it was meant to be played. It's like someone romanticizing the 1800s. Revolution, freedom, and love. Yeah, but then you also have poverty, death, and war.
The Black Plague.
You guys remember the Oregon Trail? Just because some things back then were great doesn't mean that they'll live or work in a modern environment. Honestly though, One
No,
thing
I think Classic showed that with a lot of the different ways that players approach the game. I think that's absolutely true. Yeah, horseshit on the street, exactly, man.
I take from back then versus now would be chat. By the love of all that is holy in this world, please remove the amount of gold cells that exist in spam and chat with no repercussions. People have always been buying gold. That itself is not new. What's new is how open and accepting everyone is of the situation. You used to get banned for being outed as a gold seller or even a buyer. Nowadays, people openly admit—
You wouldn't get banned just because people said that. Like, they would look into it, and like, there were people buying gold all the time back then. Like, it's just that I think a lot of these guys, they played on smaller servers. On KT, people were buying gold in trade chat. Straight up. Like, they were, like, people were spamming, buying and selling gold in trade chat. And nothing ever happened.
To it and make fun of it for their personal and guild discords. Because guess what? There really aren't that many, if any, repercussions for the buyers anymore. But there used to be. People used to be terrified because of one thing we no longer have the luxury of having. GMs. I miss having GMs in the game who would actually do things. A looming terror to the scum and a savior to the poor and innocent. Remember the support system actually working? Writing a ticket and getting an answer? Do you guys remember that? I don't anymore. Because Blizzard knows what we want, and that's an automated answer 8 times before we get threatened with silence or else. Like Asmongold getting banned for what exactly? Think about it. He got caught in an automated gold buyer seller ban wave. The biggest MMO streamer got hit with an automated ban and still took them days to unban, if he's even unbanned right now. Now imagine you did. Your account had a good run, my friend. It's time to make a new one. I
think that's what sucks, right? Is like, for me, obviously, I was able to get out from under it because, like, you know, I can, like, contact people at Blizzard. But for a random-ass person, I bet they're fucked. Yeah, it would suck, man. They're fairly decent about dealing with loot problems. I think that, like, with Wrath back in the day, there were a lot of times, like, I remember I would buy, because I didn't have any money, I would buy a code for, like, a month of WoW for my mom. Because she would be like, oh, I need a month of WoW. And I would buy it. It was like 1,000 gold for like $1. So I would get like I would give somebody 15K and they would give me a code for 30 days of WoW. This was very common. And like, she'd send me the gold and then I'd give it to somebody. And people would advertise that in trade chat, straight up in front of everybody. Everybody was doing this.
Things were absolutely great back in the day compared to now. Like the Blizzard of our childhood versus the Blizzard of our adulthood. Like the uncle you revered only to find out he's not someone you should be revering. Never meet your heroes, guys. Yeah. But I digress. Wrath of the Lich King was an incredible game back in the day, and it'll be an incredible game as Wrath of the Lich King Classic. Whilst it is the exact same game, with hashtag some changes, it's going to be played in a way that no one from back then would have imagined. With a metric fuck ton of GDKPs and swiping. Jokes aside, though that's not really a joke. Good luck in your Wrath of the Lich King adventures, and hopefully it ends up being the game you envisioned it being. Because Wrath of the Lich King Classic will not be about the experience, it'll be about the results and the efficiency. And in nowadays modern settings, that's how people have fun, I guess. And that's okay.
That's okay.
Because that wasn't the original feeling that the game used to be, but it is what it is now. It used to be about the experience.
I want people to know that back in Wrath of the Lich King, people lamented the fact that everything is about efficiency now, and it's not about having fun anymore like it was in Classic WoW. Even in 2009 and 2010, people said the same shit. This was always the case. Like, oh, now it's just about your gear score. It's not about who you know or anything. It's just, oh, you have a high gear score. That's it. Like, I think that's always been the case in one way or another.
Hashtag some changes is not just about Wrath of the Lich King, guys. It's also the player base. It will be an absolute pleasure to play with some of you. Some of you I'll be happy to never see again, but most of you are great. If you enjoy the content, please do like and subscribe as it helps the channel out immensely. Have a fantastic day. Ebonheart out.
And like, you have to also remember, like, Wrath... Just a second, sorry. You have to remember, like, Wrath of the Lich King was a lot harder. So you did need to min-max way more in Wrath than you did previously. And also, because the resources started becoming more available and accessible, like things on YouTube, being able to get different items more easily because you had badges, etc., and like all that kind of stuff, I think this is a good reality check. I mean, this guy's only got 126 subs. You know, hopefully he makes more videos like this. I think this was pretty decent, and I definitely hope so. This is definitely, I think, a reality check for a lot of people, is that this is what happens every single time that like a new classic expansion or classic patch comes out, is like people will go and they'll be like, man, I can't wait for it to be like it used to be. And I don't think that it's ever going to be like it used to be, but that doesn't mean that it can't be good. And I think that's one of the big exceptions that people don't really seem to realize, is that the game doesn't have to be perfect and amazing and exactly the way it used to be in order for it to just still be fun and enjoyable and relaxing and good to play. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize. It's still going to be fun. You're still going to be able to enjoy yourself playing with your friends, etc. It's still going to be fun. Yeah, it was like, I don't know, like, does that seem fair to you? I mean, I think it does. Wrath of the Lich King 2 is going to destroy a lot of memories, I reckon. I think that a lot of people probably, I think they're already primed for that. Because, like, TBC and Vanilla came out. I think that, like, anybody who's going to go into Wrath with, like, rose-tinted goggles, like, it's not going to be a lot easier. I mean, they already had their dreams shattered in 2019 with Classic. So, like, I just don't see that happening. Yeah, I don't see that happening at all. Except for the friends part. First 3 days of Classic WoW was so good. Was as good as the vanilla experience. It was as good, yeah, sure, but it was different. I mean, absolutely. So this entire point of the video is we have more knowledge now, which people think is a bad thing. Well, I think that a lot of people, there is a certain value, and you see this value reflected in something like Elden Ring or like Final Fantasy's community, where that community actively does not like data mining and spoilers. They don't want that in the game. So I do think that there's a lot of people, and even in WoW, like people are saying regularly, like, oh, I wish less stuff was data mined. I wish that, you know, we got to experience the story whenever it really happened. I think that's very common. There's value in not just skipping past everything. You might just end up having some fun. Yeah, no, I think that's the case. It's just that now the culture is a lot different. And also, I think a lot of people that are playing Wrath now probably have already played Wrath. Like, I don't have like a chart for this, but I bet a lot of the people that are going to be playing Wrath of the Lich King already played Wrath of the Lich King. So they're not looking for that first time experience again. Yeah, I think a lot of people have. I never did. Oh, no, I think that, yeah, actually, that'd be, oh, I can't do polls on here because I'm not a partner. I would do a poll. That'd be interesting. Data mining leads to people complaining about things without context, like the Hogger model, Paladin tier set helmet. Yeah, but it also leads people to giving feedback ahead of time and then them being able to change it. I mean, it's always a double-edged sword. But, like, all I'm saying is that I do think Wrath is going to be a lot different than it was in 2008. But it will still probably be fun the same way TBC and Classic were fun. You just can't go into it expecting to have the same experience that people had back then. That's what I would say. So this video Willie did. I guess he did this yesterday, and like I talked about this a bit yesterday too, and I was gonna get like his perspective on it and see what's going on with it, right?
The pre-patch is finally underway and our first look into Wrath changes on live servers are here. Alongside this, we have had quite the lengthy and interesting blue post about changes currently in discussion from Blizzard. Before we go into that though, Fresh Realms have now been confirmed and as of this video should be live and good to go. Initially, Blizzard announced there would only be one PvP server per region, stating we also want to open as few fresh start realms as possible because by adding choice to the realms, the community could easily say, okay, this is the realm for the Horde and this is the one for the Alliance, so we're looking at adding as few of...
Well, I would worry more about like everybody just going to the same realm and then the other ones being dead. But yeah,
as possible, maybe even one per region. And Blizzard believes in doing this, they're giving the fresh start realms the best chance to have faction balance, and that's what they did, and they are, or were, completely correct. Initial feedback in only having one realm per region was, rather predictably, where PvE server, and they ended up adding a PvE server a few hours later. Good old two-faction system does it once again. Anyways, here's your server names. North America has Sky Fury for PvP and Maladath for PvE, and Europe has Thekal for PvP and a Giant Stalker for normal. On to the main part of the news, a huge discussion between members of the Classic Community Council and Blizzard. Before we go on,
this
these
is what we
ideas were
talked about.
presented by Blizzard. The Community Council have just written them up and posted them onto the forums following the talk, and nothing here is confirmed. The whole notion here is to get
it's still like an idea, but I hope they go through with it. I think it's a good idea.
Feedback on potential problems. So the context of these blue posts from the Community Council and Blizzard is a ton of stuff, and I don't particularly fancy being a TTS for the next 20 minutes, so I'm just going to include the important bits and try and shorten the whole thing by a lot and give some insight on changes. First up is the idea for an item level squish for Trial of the Crusader gear. The overall ideas here are to keep Ulduar relevant content for longer, as hard mode gear.
I like how even Blizzard acknowledges that TOC was kind of like not as good as Ulduar. Like, I mean, everybody just kind of like knows that.
From Ulduar can be replaced by Trial 25 normal. There's a feeling that Ulduar gear should be relevant for longer, as it's more challenging to acquire, and also that Ulduar was cut short somewhat originally in Wrath. They also want to reduce the size of the power jump from Ulduar to Trial. Trial is where scaling DPS really begin to scale, with stats such as armor penetration beginning to ramp up considerably. Here's some more context on the idea. A new raid tier being released and making the entire previous tier gear obsolete is a paradigm that kind of started with Trial of the Crusader in some aspects.
I really wish that was not the case. I honestly wish that we could go back to like vanilla and TBC gearing, where like you would go through multiple raids to get different stuff. Maybe it's like an unpopular opinion, but I thought it was cool, like in BFA, where there were still a few trinkets like the Ashvane's Razor Coral that you could get from the previous raid. Like, I'm not saying everything should be like that, but like there should be like a handful of pieces that you can get from the old raids that are really good. That'd be bussin'? Yeah, it would be fun.
One of Blizzard's ideas is exploring the possibility of reducing the item level on gear from Trial of the Crusader so that this doesn't happen.
I think just increasing Ulduar gear is better, and then releasing Ulduar pre-nerf.
Zerhut, who is an original Blizzard dev that worked on Wrath Itemization, had this to say. When Trial came out, there basically was no point to go to Ulduar anymore. The idea right now is basically to take all of the Trial of the Crusader gear and drop them about 13 item levels, so the items from hard mode Ulduar are just a little bit better than Trial normal. So it's time for a lesson on item levels, so you know what dropping 13 item levels actually looks like in front of you. Ulduar 10-man drops 219 item level, 10-man hard modes drop 226, and some items are 232. Ulduar 25 drops 226 or 232 item level gear, and 25 hard modes drop 239. Now along comes the next raid, Trial of the Crusader. Trial 10-man normal drops 232, 10-man heroic drops 245. Trial of the Crusader 25-man normal drops 245, 25 heroic drops 258. There are also some cloaks for completing a tribute run that are 272, which are just completely insane, but we're gonna leave them out.
Yeah, like those, like you gotta remember, like those cloaks were fucking ridiculous, because you have to remember, like red socket, what's red socket? That's more spell power. So like you're getting spell power and a socket bonus for even more spell power. Like this gear, those cloaks are best. They're fucking insane.
For the time being, if Trial gear was dropped across the board by 13 item levels, it will now look like this. So Ulduar is the same, we've already been over that. Trial of the Crusader 10-man would now drop 219, 10-man heroic would drop 232, 25-man normal would drop 232, and 25-man heroic would drop 245. With this new format, 10-man Ulduar and Trial of the Crusader drop the same item level gear, which is a bit strange for a new raid tier to not at least drop something a little bit better.
Yeah, see, I don't like that. Like, I'm glad they're not going to go with this, and I hope that they don't change their mind and go with it. I think that it's badass for your character to be more powerful later on in the game. Like, that's part of the reason why it's fun building a character. Like, you think about, like, most of the like, look at roguelikes, for example. Like, what's the fun in a roguelike? It's getting some crazy broken bullshit. Like, in Vampire Survivors, it's like getting, you know, everything maxed out and you just clear the entire screen every second. It's like in Hades, where you just fucking spam whatever ability you have and just, like, one-shot anything, like the shield or something like that. And every single ability... like in PoE, you get better and better gear and you just fucking clear the entire screen. Anything like that is good. So I don't think they should nerf that experience, because the experience is fundamentally fun. Like, don't nerf fun. just make it more fun.
Similar story between Ulduar 10 man and Trial 10 heroic, only some of the loot is the same item level though. For Trial 25 man, both of them are better than the Ulduar counterparts. So that's quite the drop, and at face value, and after having done Trial of the Crusader 25 for the week, it will be back to Ulduar 25 hard mode to collect some loot. You also have to remember there won't be 4 resets of Trial in Wrath Classic, as you can only do 1 run of each difficulty per week.
There's still going to be way more loot from Trial of the Crusader though, because like you would only get 1 hard mode item whenever you'd clear Ulduar on the hard mode. Like you would get the base, you get all the item drops and then 1 item from the hard mode loot table. It wasn't like everything was upgraded.
10-man encounters in Ulduar will drop Trial equivalent item level loot if this was to change. However, Trial of the Crusader tier and itemization ramps up quite considerably compared to Ulduar. Even if it's the same item level, chances are it will still be better. Overall, this change is going to make things, if it happens, well, very, very complicated. And on an itemization level, there's been a saying for a long time now in retail World of Warcraft, which is always correct when evaluating upgrades: dim it. That is, plug the item into a simulation and see if it gives better results than the old item. With this,
it's crazy how much like math and shit goes into doing stuff in retail WoW. Like I'm not a fan of that. I think that is just so like boring and lame.
Format, however, I'm confident in saying that Ulduar 25-man hard mode would remain relevant content during Trial of the Crusader, but this will have knock-on effects. It may not be the perfect raid tier power jump, but what it will do to the game is a known value. If it changes, this will switch things up, potentially in a massive way. Certain classes are expected to really begin to scale or make changes to a new specialization in Trial as itemization gets better, notably Fury Warriors and Fire Mages begins.
Yeah, because you get spell haste and spell crit. Like once the haste and crit ratios go up high enough, and same with armor pen is for warriors, but like you can't forget about mages and like warlocks and shit. Like they would do ridiculous damage too if they got really good gear, because you were getting like the thing is like each stat made each other stat better. So like the more haste you got, the more your crit would matter. And the more crit you got, the more your haste would matter. So like they multiply against each other and it makes you do even more damage.
Come online, and classes
stats,
such as hunters consider the swap from survival to marksman, rogues from assassination to combat, and more. On top of this, we will go into Ice Crown Citadel weaker than what would have been expected. That's literally like us walking into Ice Crown Citadel being capped at 10-man level gear from Trial. On top of this, I believe Ulduar will remain relevant content, but for how long? If it's a 4-month patch by itself, for example, and Trial was a 3-month patch by itself, that's over half a year of one raid being relevant. Is there too much of a good thing here, perhaps? Ulduar on top of this is not a fast raid like Trial of the Crusader is. Perhaps this is a good thing, because 2 trial runs for the week will see your raiding polished off in a few hours in an organized group. It's nice.
I think that for most guilds, if they're doing hard mode, Ulduar hard mode will probably take 2 to 3 hours. All things considered, realistically, after you're clearing it, it will probably be a 2 to 3 hour endeavor. So a lot of bosses.
Something else to do and more reasons to play your main character. Also, as a side note, they said the amount of gear that drops in Trial may be looked at as there would be less lockouts. Finally, there's even arguments that with no changes to Trial or itemization or anything, there's plenty of reasons to go back to Ulduar. We have achievement runs, we have mount runs, we have things like Herald of the Titans, we have Valinir farming, and so on. I think back in the day, many players felt as though Ulduar was cut a little short compared to how amazing its legacy has been looking back. These days, maybe we just want to give it a long enough patch as a standalone piece of content before Trial comes along, or incentivize going back there in a different way once Trial is out. I've tried to cover all of the goods and bads for this change here. Personally though, I'm still a little unsure, though I'm verging on just do a longer Ulduar patch. It'll be fine. Anyways, these are all ideas and suggestions. Feedback is always good here.
I think Ulduar will be harder. I mean, you've got to keep in mind, like, I think Ulduar, some of the hardest hard modes in Ulduar are as big of a jump that Black Temple was from Sunwell. Or Black Temple was to Sunwell. Like, in my opinion, I think that, like, Sunwell was, like, just such a massive fucking difficulty increase. And like back in the day, you had guilds that were doing like they were clearing Illidan and they couldn't kill Caligos. Like that shit was no joke. And Ulduar was the same thing. Like you had so many big dick ego guilds because they could clear Nax 25 men, go into Ulduar and get a reality check. And I think the reality is that Ulduar is a lot fucking harder than anything else they had put in the game. And I think that a lot of guilds probably, it will take them longer to get through Ulduar. The same as Sunwell did. Sunwell was the hardest rated classic. I think Sunwell was a bigger jump in difficulty than any other raid had been at that point in time in history. Like Nax 40 was really hard, but I would argue that Nax 40 was really hard. There were only a few bosses that were really hard, and a lot of people didn't do Nax 40 because of how many consumables it took. Not necessarily its difficulty. Sunwell's most fun raid in Classic, in my opinion. Well, I don't know, I'm just saying it's the hardest.
Okay, we have 2 more points to roll through here. This should be pretty quick.
Yeah,
PvP stuff first. Blizzard are allowing engineering items in Season 5. They say items from engineering will be allowed in the arena, and some players have nostalgia around these items.
So, like, my understanding is, like, they're getting rid of like the rocket gloves, but you're keeping a few other things. Yeah, it changed it. I think that, again, it's like whenever you take away an option that's just infinitely better than every other option, you actually don't remove diversity, you create it. Because whenever there's one obvious decision that everybody makes, then nobody else does anything else besides that. You just all do the same cookie-cutter decision, and that's bad.
We will be monitoring it and watching how players approach this, and possibly will change it for later seasons. Did you really need another reason to go engineering in Wrath? I doubt it, but now you have one. Anyway, oh, and do you remember tornadoes in Nagran during Season 1 of TBC? Right? Good old nostalgia changes. Gotta love them. Finally, a favourite topic of mine, faction balance. Oh boy, we're having another go at this, are we? Let's have a look what they're saying. Instead of trying to twist players' arms and force them to move to certain servers, we'd like to try a design solution to this. The idea is that if you are on the underdog faction, you have a massive bonus, something like 50% increased honor, 20% increased experience, 10% increased reputation, loot bags from quests or whatever. What we really want to lean into is if a realm achieves a certain level of faction balance, both factions get the reward, or maybe both factions get the reward and it's doubled. Blizzard overall stress they think the right approach to fixing faction balance would be a reward-based system. So what do I think? I mean, sure, sounds interesting, but maybe at the start of TBC perhaps? I don't know, it just feels really late and too far gone to be trying anything that's going to make a meaningful change. And I know it's not official, but it really does feel as though Ironforge.pro paints an accurate picture.
Look at the horde! I think it's the first time I saw it, as I said, it was like the rapture. God snapped his fingers and called all of his loyal souls back up to heaven. And they were just gone immediately. In 1 week, like thousands of people just disappeared. Fucking yeah, Thanos snapped.
Of what you can expect on a server by server basis.
Jesus.
And faction transfers will be added later on in Wrath 2. We've had that confirmed a while ago.
I don't know why they don't just like, I wish they would just combine the realms. Just combine the realms and just add more layers.
That's not going to help how things are. I think if they wanted to design around something, design around the fact that players have made the choice time and time again to sort themselves onto big faction majority servers. Yes. And it would take something out.
Yes, of course they would do that. Again, well, I like playing on the underdog faction. Well, I like, that's more people I can kill. Yeah, well, look at the chart.
Absolutely enormous to really make a meaningful change to that. In any event, that's everything we had to go over today. Drop your thoughts on it all below. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I will see you all in the next one very soon.
All right, yeah, I think that's fair enough. I mean, like, look, let me link you guys a video real quick. And I played Classic, lost my job, got engulfed on it, was server 9th, rank 14. Top Nax on time on a server, all tier pieces, did random world PP for a couple weeks, got a job, and I never played it again. Yeah, that's about right. Look, I just want them... I wish that they would realize that servers are not a value add for the player. I think in like 95% of circumstances, and for like 95 to 90% of players, being on a special server and not being able to play with other people is a negative rather than a positive. Make bigger servers with more layers. Bigger server, better... Hey, give me this. Give me this. I need this. Oh, he gave me 7 to 6. Thank you, man. Thanks. This is great. That guy, you're getting promoted. Hey, somebody promote this guy. Somebody promote this guy in the guild. I got 65 gold. What a nice guy. Thank you so much. Let me collect my free rewards from another video game now, and then we'll look at another video. Give me a second. Yeah, this is great. This is just fucking great. How to get into the guild? Oh, you just saw it. Yeah, this is just amazing. Wow. 30 more gold. 30 more gold. We're gonna get 30 more. Oh my god, I have 100 gold now. Thank you so much, man. God damn. Like, man. Bro, like, we're gonna get this shit inflated. Like, we should have the server first GDKP raid, man. That would be fun. That'd be really fucking fun. Yeah, this makes the game boring? For who? Like, what do you think? It's fun for me to farm for fucking gold? Get the fuck out of here. No, it's not. It's annoying. I don't want to waste my time with that bullshit. Yeah, why GDKP? For fun. Someone's trying to do GDKP for Dead Mines runs? That's smart. Federal Reserve Mongold? Yeah, true. True. All right, anyway, let's go back. So, you know, I think, again, this is it's a good thing that Blizzard is changing and listening to people.